morning, traders. Kevin with Forex-Trading Today's Monday, November 30th, and we're going to quickly go through some of the markets. It's been a while since I've done a video, so here let's get started just looking at what we have so far this morning. Right off the bat, we got the Aussie Cad. This is a trade we've been in since November 11th. And we still have one position remaining. As you can see, we've already taken out the first and second take profits. And has since fallen back, getting near to entry, which I currently have my stop set at that last remaining entry at the entry point. So if we get stopped out, we're basically made the first two profits, and that'll be the end of the trade. So as you can see, it's currently, let me get rid of a couple of these things, clear things up. So we're currently at a trend line support. If we end up breaking through that, most likely we'll be back at the entry level. So we'll just keep an eye on our remaining positions, see what happens from there. If it ends up going up, great. If not, not a problem. Aussie Swiss. It's been bouncing around for the last week or so, last 2 weeks, essentially at this resistance level at 0.67. So you can see we've kind of forming a triangle here. We'll see if that triangle gets broken to the upside. If not, it may drop back down into this support area. Around 6,600. So we're going to watch and see what happens with this one. If we break down below, you see, we could get a bounce off of that support and go back up, or we could continue to drop. RSI is a little bit indicative of a divergence. So chances are we could see a drop down to this support level before we either have a bounce or we continue lower. So we'll keep an eye on that one for any potential trades. Aussie yen. See what we have here. I'll throw in a couple of resistance areas. See if we got anything in the works. Potential trades. We could see a similar situation here with a breakout, either higher or lower, depending on what this if this resistance holds. Could end up dropping down to this level. If it does not, maybe see a bounce. So we'll see what happens there. Aussie, New Zealand, been on a downtrend for quite some time now, since August. So we're kind of seeing if the trend continues along this channel or not. Short term, we could see a bounce off of this trend, but again, you never know what that bounce is going to do. It could bounce fairly shallow before it continues lower, or it could bounce all the way up to the channel. So not too much to trade just yet on that one, unless we see something significant. Because short term, we would be looking at this resistance area on a bounce higher. Aussie dollar, couple of zones here, throwing in, keep an eye on. Get this out of here. Be watching for a break lower, potentially down to this zone before another bounce. Again, we don't know if this is an ending move higher for a deeper bounce into I guess our next lower support zone, which would be right in this area. If we break higher above this resistance zone, we could see a pullback for an opportunity to go long and ride the move higher. So we'll keep an eye on that. CAD Swiss, still have a couple open positions in this. We entered way back on the 18th. 69.76, made the move higher, took out the first take profit, has since pulled back. Now we're looking at potentially riding higher to that second take profit. Right now we're currently break even, so see what happens on the remaining positions. CAD Yen, not too much here that I see currently. Throw a couple of trend lines in here. You can see we've kind of held those trend lines, this support zone for this bounce here. Currently at a smaller support zone or resistance zone here. Throw in these zones. If we break above, we could hit that zone, pull back, or we could continue to ride this trend line for a move, continued move higher. Those are just a couple possibilities on that one. Swiss yen. Throw some obvious trend lines in there. Had several, couple of pin bars back here. So if we see a move, a break above this trend line, it could be a potential long on a pullback. If not, we could see another breakdown lower from here. Down to this zone. Could be a potential triangle pattern here on an overall potentially move higher. So if we get a breakout above this, we could potentially go higher. So Euro Aussie. See what we have here. Nothing very apparent at the moment. It's kind of been bouncing around also since earlier this month. Break above this, could see a little bit move higher. This is a throw in a zone there. Going back a little ways, throwing some zones there. Potential resistance area here to get through. So if we see it break out of this, we'll be watching for this move higher up to 165 or so. Euro CAD has been choppy for some time. Not too much to really look at yet here, at least on a 4-hour chart. Euro Swiss is always very choppy and wicky, as you can see with all these wicks. So not always looking to trade it very often. so I'm not going to look at that too much right now. Euro pound. This looks like it's been in a trend for a while. Currently at the top of this channel, have a little minor resistance zone where we've kind of rejected over the last couple of sessions. So we'll be looking at seeing what happens if we reject this zone and continue with the trend lower, or if we ultimately bounce here and make a break out of the zone, continue higher. Euro yen. See if we got anything here. Little minor trend line break. Not too convincingly yet. Got a zone currently in this resistance zone here. So a break higher out of this. Could possibly see up to 126, 126.50 before we meet some resistance. Euro, New Zealand. Same thing. A lot of these euro pairs have been trending one way or the other, but nothing too convincingly to trade, at least in my opinion. Euro dollar, always sometimes unpredictable just because of the dollar aspect. Currently at this resistance area. So if we get a break above this, we need to go to the daily to look and see where we may be headed. Throw in a resistance line there. Maybe have another 50, 60 pips before we see some resistance. We get above that, we could see 122 before we see any more resistance there. Pound Aussie. Take a look at this. Nothing too obvious at the moment either. Again, a lot of these charts, right now we're just taking a quick look, seeing if there's any obvious directions. Then we'll start to keep an eye on these things, see if we can identify any patterns, bullish or bearish patterns, short term, long term, what have you. But we'll keep looking for trades in all of these. Just for example, this is we just got a quick little consolidating triangle here. Take a little closer look at it. You can see we've got a nice zone here. So you could potentially try to short this down to the bottom of the triangle, or go long and look at a move towards the upper end of that triangle. So I'm not currently looking to trade it, but if you did want to trade some shorter term trades, this would be a trade to potentially look at. Pound CAD. Had a simple, at least a simple head and shoulder. Looks like it's already broken down. Came back up and tested the neckline here, and then it has dropped back down. So too late to trade the head and shoulder pattern of this pair, but it could have some more potential downside if in the higher time frame, potentially down to this trend line before we see a bounce. Pound yen. So 4-hour trend line here. We'll watch for a break above this level here before we look at going long. 139.80, 140 area before we would look to go long. If we see a break below this low at 138.25, then we could see another move, 100 pip move or so lower before we see some more support. So something to keep an eye out on. Pound New Zealand. This pair is broken below support area. As you see here, has since retested, so we could be looking for another move lower, at least at first glance. So if we throw in a channel here, see what that looks like. We could see a move, continued move lower within this channel. On the daily, throw in a trend line here, we could see some support down 187 area before we see a bounce. Looking at RSI, we do see some divergence here on the RSI, which could just be a short-term divergence on this bounce. So we'll watch this RSI, see if we continue to drop. Gives an idea if we're going to continue to drop lower to this support zone here. We'll throw in another support line in that area. Which is where we're currently at. So that's probably why we're seeing a little bit of a bounce here. So we'll watch this zone, see if we make that move lower on the 4-hour. Pound dollar. Got a heavy resistance zone here at 134, 135 area, which is where we're currently at. We do see some bearish divergence currently on the daily time frame. So we could possibly be seeing a setup to potentially go short on this pair. Watching to make sure we don't break this high at the 134.84 area. So short term, what we would be looking for is break below this trend line. Okay, a decided break below this trend line. So we get a break below this, we may want to go short. Looking for around this area, 132 or so. Now Obviously, if we continue higher, then we'll watch what happens at this major resistance area first. Some of these pairs have just been continuing to push higher or lower. Last couple of weeks obviously is a little different, just in this month is different just because of all the elections, the holidays, everything's just, you may see divergences, but they don't always follow what that divergence suggests, so they may continue on with their current trend. I've been seeing a lot of that lately. So here we have a channel. We've already broken above a resistance area. Back to the daily, big trend line break here. So daily could look for a pullback here before going higher. Throwing in some resistance lines. This pullback may not start until we continue on up to here. It's just too early to tell. So that's one good thing. One reason why I always like to put in channels and things like that, so you see a somewhat of a break in a trend. It may give you an idea of when to start looking at how the market's going to move in that pair. So if we break down below this channel, we could see a move lower before going higher. Till we break below this channel, this thing could bounce up in this channel all the way up to resistance. So kind of hard to know how to trade it just yet. New Zealand yen. We had a long drawn out channel, not really much of a triangle, just a consolidation that we finally broke out of, came back down in. Now we've broken higher out of it again. So looking at the daily, throw a few trend lines in there just to see where we're at. So we had broken above a long continued trend line for 2 years, or 3 years almost. So 3.5 years since July of 2017 on the daily time frame. So we could be looking for a continued bounce higher, continued move higher. Throw in some support resistance lines here. If you're not familiar with, if you're new to trading, not familiar with how to draw these, check out our video on the website on how to draw these support and resistance lines. Really simple, but it does tell you a lot. The markets do respect these lines, these areas, pretty regularly. So this pair could do a number of things. Could continue higher. Things like that. Dollar, Kiwi dollar. Get rid of some of these old chart. We'll leave that zone in there. All right, so this pair looks like it could be on a move daily up to 71.80 or so, or higher. 4-hour chart, same as a lot of pairs. Got a channel here continuing to ride up until we see otherwise. See a breakout of it to a move lower, then we'll be watching for short trades. Otherwise, we could be just bouncing up all the way up to resistance in this area. Dollar CAD. Been in a continued move lower for a while also. Still currently sitting at support. Look at it on a daily time frame. Broke below that trend line, so we could see some weakness here in the dollar CAD for a while. Watch for an obvious break below where it's at right now. Next level lower would be around the 123 or 28 area. So if we see bearish price action below here, below the zone, we could very well see a move down to 128 in the next several days or week or so. So we'll be keeping an eye out on that for that. One thing you learn when you start trading a lot is when you start doing technical analysis with patterns and everything. Sometimes you'll see different patterns. You'll see some patterns that may conflict with each other, even though they're valid patterns. Sometimes you just have a hard time just knowing which direction it's going to head, and it all depends on your trading style. You may want to trade both patterns. You may want to trade one pattern and things like that. Just for example, this looks like we maybe headed lower based off of just simple trend lines support in the current trend of over the last several months. But sometimes you see patterns within that may lead you to suggest a move in the opposite direction, but it may be a shorter term move. So just for example here, looking at if you're familiar with wolf waves, it's a 5-wave ending pattern move. This may or may not be one, but it's just an obvious potential wolf wave pattern that meets the requirements before you see a move. So, and real quick, to trade wolf waves, it's basically just an ending triangle pattern, diagonal, before you make a move in the opposite direction. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One of the typical requirements of a wolf wave is that fifth wave drops below the trend line between wave 1 and 3. But to trade this, you don't want to enter. In other words, this wolf wave would be an indicative, if it indeed is one, of a move higher. But you wouldn't want to trade that until you see a candle close on a move back up into the triangle. So if this continues to drop, then this wolf wave obviously isn't valid because it's continuing on. But if we see a move higher and we see a candle close, this is a 4-hour chart. If we see a candle close above this trend line, within this channel or this triangle, it may be an opportunity to go long based off of this analysis. So, and it would also be it could be a potential analysis, just because a potential possibility, because we are currently sitting at a support area. So if we see a bounce, say in the next couple of sessions, we see a candle close within this, we could potentially go long for a move higher. One of your first targets on a wolf wave is a trend line between 1 and 4, between wave 1 and 4. So you could see a potential move up in this area before we see a rejection if it decides to go lower. So it's just one of the many ways to trade, looking at different patterns and markets. Dollar Swiss, we had this trade on since the 18th. We entered back up here at 91.13. We've since hit the second target for a pretty good profit. Continuing to hold that remaining position. Let's see if we can get down to TP3. So that turned out to be a good trade for us. And finally, dollar yen. Still not really looking at trading this one. Could potentially bounce back up to this channel, to this triangle zone, but not really currently looking at trading it. So that's just a quick run through most of the pairs that we normally look at. Just wanted to point out, if you haven't seen, we currently have a Black Friday, which is now a post Black Friday sale. We're just keeping this going. You can get a year of our service for only $99. You get trade signals, analysis charts, videos. We have Telegram channels that we post all this info in. You can find this on our Instagram. You can find it on our free Telegram channel with the link. Click on the link, it just takes you to the website. So when you select the one pack gold package 1 year, it's normally $648. We've taken that big discount off. You can get it for $99. It automatically enters the code. So all you gotta do is sign up and join our team. Other than that, we'll keep an eye on the markets. We issued some trade signals this morning, so we'll check on those a little bit later. So other than that, hope everyone has a good day, good trading day, and we'll talk to you soon.